Came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand.
Welcome to Project Lighthouse, a beacon of knowledge and training in the rapidly evolving field of cybersecurity. Spearheaded by myself, Mervin Pearce, a CISSP ISSAP, this initiative stands for the forefront of addressing the most pressing challenges and opportunities within cybersecurity landscape. With a dedication to illuminating the path for aspiring professionals and enhancing the skills of those already navigating the complexities of cyber threats, Project Lighthouse aims to empower individuals with the knowledge, the skills and insights required to thrive in this critical field. As we embark on this journey together, let us illuminate the darkness of cybersecurity threats with a light of expertise, innovation, and unwavering determination. Join us as we delve into the fascinating world of cybersecurity, exploring foundational sparks of interest that led many of this dynamic career path, the crucial educational and training avenues available, and the invaluable experiences that shape the cybersecurity leaders of tomorrow. This is an interview of 10 questions by a mentee of this program.
What first sparked your interest in cybersecurity, and when did you decide to pursue a career in this field?
Well, this is quite an interesting question because many individuals become interested in cybersecurity due to the desire to protect against increasing threat of cyber attacks. It's always in the news. They need to solve some complex technical challenges or make a positive impact by helping secure sensitive information or systems. Some may have had prior experience in IT, specifically programming, that really helps. Any related fields, such as cryptography, for example, while others have discovered their interest in cybersecurity through educational opportunities, or mostly actually on the job exposure. Now, we know that cybersecurity, there's a lack of professionals in the market. Now, regarding this pursuing of the career in the field, some of you may start by taking courses, for example, to obtain some certifications in cybersecurity. And this is where it becomes a difficult question to actually look at, because some of the courses, personally I may say, is not really worth anything. And we'll get into that when we actually talk about that and looking a little bit deeper. In contrast, there may also be a transition into cybersecurity through work experience in a related field. Ultimately, the decision to pursue a career in cybersecurity will depend on several personal, professional, and economic factors. If I can come back to the statement that I made that some of the courses aren't really worth it, what you need to do is actually look at, for example, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and so on, that actually identify cybersecurity jobs available in the market and look at what they require from a certification point of view. Some of the courses are actually sold more on as much as you can actually try and get out there just to actually get a certification on your name. But like I said, look around before you actually may take that step.
Can you describe your education and training in cybersecurity? What certifications, degrees, or courses did you complete?
Now, from an education and training cybersecurity, what degrees and certifications? I started initially going to a university, did science and mathematics as a fact, and realized at the end of the day, it's not that exciting. And I actually left and I actually joined an organization, insurance firm, but in the IT side. And my first job was really, in the field we'll call them jungle bunnies. You run around fixing things, fixing computers, looking at viruses, infections, and sort of like a help desk, but you're actually in the field. And I looked after the broker's environment. This sparked my interest within cybersecurity because viruses was not just actually cleaning them using software, antivirus software, for example. However, started looking deeper into that to actually analyze, so actually do reverse engineering on the viruses using disassembler. That was Microsoft DOS still, and you had a disassembler and you can actually throw the .com file, the executable file. You can throw the executable file inside the disassembler and look at the code and see what it does. Also, the ability to look at the sectors of the hard drive once the virus has infected it, looking in deep and actually look at the machine code. And this really started getting that passion for cybersecurity. So it started at a very small point of view, looking at antivirus and sorting those kind of things out from a threat from the organization. And this is many, many years ago. It's like 30 odd years ago.
What experience and skills did you have before entering the field? Did you have any previous experience in IT, networking, or programming?
If we actually look at the skills before I entered the field, before I actually had my initial job, this is where the computers, the IBM PCs just came out. So this is around 1981, 82. And I actually bought my first PC. And I was really interested in the programming language and actually doing things. So I started coding, going through BASIC. So GW BASIC or GWIZ BASIC is the DOS days it was known. So this was my experience in actually doing tinkering and upgrading my PC, etc. like that. Once I started working, the first networks that we actually used to have is ArcNet. So that was a 1 and 2 megabit networks. So, it's quite a while ago. And then also, how this works in the actual communication and things like that, and how we could actually improve this. And again, having a support in the environment. Also, very interesting is I worked also in the token ring environment, which means when you look deeper into your certification in networking or CISSP, you'll look at the different kind of things like token ring and so on. And the thing is there, if you can actually, if one thing breaks, the whole network is down. So that kind of troubleshooting still increased the spark of the networking and programming side, which was really positive in the field. So you need to have that passion.
How did you go about finding your first job in cybersecurity? Did you have any mentors that helped you along the way?
My first job in cybersecurity, well, that's interesting because as I said, started working in a sort of like a help desk environment, running around fixing PCs that were infected with viruses. And that experience within the insurance, I had a call from a bank at that point in time, and there was an opening for a security analyst. Not at that time, it was purely an entry level job. And because I actually had some minimal Unix experience, Unix at that time, not Linux as we know it, and then also having some OS2 and MS-DOS experience. And this bank actually had their whole branch environment on OS2, and then also they had a mini or Unix environment, and then also a mainframe environment. So I was employed initially by the bank in the field for the actual desktops in security. So it was a computer security department, but looking at OS2 and then the applications. The applications were developed by a third party, which was their core banking solutions running on OS2 at that time. From a mentor point of view, I think it's many, many years ago, and cybersecurity was just in its infancy, really. When I started looking at the first course I actually went to on cybersecurity was looking at the rudimentary thing from a virus point of view, ATMs, and some attacks surfaces, call it that. At this time, we'll call it that, but just attacks on these systems. The person that employed me, he was actually quite much older than me, but actually quite wise and very, very well presented and so on. I can call him my mentor and actually really looked up to him all the time until I actually left the bank and actually went further. But within the bank, quite interesting as well. A bank is a very good place to start because you get experience and you get experience to many systems, operating systems, network topologies and so on, which is really good. Also, what you can actually then, inside the bank, I moved from computer security. Then the next step was internal audit, IT audit, which is actually quite a great job if you can actually land one of those jobs, because you look at other people's problems and you tell the board audit committee what the problems are and you move on. The guys staying behind in cybersecurity, they actually have to fix all the problems. So it is like a easier job or much less stressful for you if you get that kind of job. And then finally, after internal audit, I actually did group risk, looking at all the risk management procedures within the organization, which is also quite a bit of a stressful. But there are different types of many, many jobs in this kind of area that you can actually look at.
What do you consider the biggest challenge you faced when starting your career in cybersecurity, and how did you overcome it?
Now, the biggest challenges that we face today, or starting a career in cybersecurity and overcoming this, is that you have to keep updated to the latest technologies. This is a continuous, constantly evolving landscape, and you have to be, the information based on what you're doing, you have to make sure you are updated all the time. Skills and certification also different areas of expertise within cybersecurity. When you do these certifications, you have a choice. Either it is product agnostic or it's product specific. For example, if it's Cisco and you do a CCNA, Certified Cisco Network Administrator, then you go for the Cisco products and you actually focus on Cisco. If you want to actually be agnostic, you look at something like a CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional, which is then ignorant of the products. You look at everything like that. You look at the domains, for example, software development, legal side, cryptography, and so on. So it's purely based on risk management at that point in time. Breaking into the field might be very difficult as well because there's competition for cybersecurity jobs. There might be jobs and they're telling you that jobs are actually available and there's 600,000 jobs available all over the world. There's remote working and so on. But you need to be able to deliver at the end of the day. And this is where you actually need to look at somebody to hold your hand, help you, go into audit and consulting, if you don't have a job yet, and let people guide you. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do also with this program, specifically to actually look at how we can improve, more women, females in this field, because we actually do need it, because there's a different kind of analytical advantage between the different sexes, of course. Sometimes people just work harder and so on. I'm not stating it as a fact, but I find it from a working experience. And then also, I think finally, the biggest one is actually understanding the business context. Because cybersecurity is not just a technical field, but also have a solid understanding of the business context and which security measures are implemented. For example, if you look at the bank and we're doing payment systems, now payment systems, you're going to have SWIFT, which is a payment system gateway for international forex transfer. Anything that has to do with a card, payment card, will be under what they call PCI DSS, which is a payment card industry standard for security. So you have to understand things that are applicable to different fields and industries as well. I usually talk about financial, but then we also have communication, for example, your 5G communication, which is quite big. So it's an area where you can actually go in, and we'll look later inside the courses that we've got into the different industries and what the top risks are there and what you need to do.
What was your first role in the security field, and how did it contribute to your growth and development as a cybersecurity professional?
Now, my first role in cybersecurity, like I said, initially within the insurance firm, it was a jungle bunny running around and getting that information. But it was actually quite good because it was new information that really sparked an interest in virus analysis. So a little bit more on the technical side, and that you can actually identify if a new virus was found, you can actually reverse engineer and see what it does, what is the payload at the end of the day, and do a write-up and analysis of that. I think that spark, you have to have a passion. You can't think this is a 9-to-5 job. If we secure systems, this is all to do with how do we combat the threats on the outside. Hackers could be anything from script kiddies just sitting down running little tools, or could be syndicates or large organizations that has their own help desk and so on, like, ransomware as a service. Keep that in mind, and you can look at that, because it is companies that rent themselves out, or hackers that rent themselves out and actually make it as a hacker for hire, and they actually sell you software to actually go do the ransomware, give you the people to target, and then they'll actually have a help desk to help you to actually get the stuff in. It's quite amazing to see what we have to combat. So you can't have a 9-to-5 job. You need to actually focus and do the right stuff. And just do the right stuff.
What advice would you give to somebody just starting out in the security field?
Now, what advice have I got? Let's actually look at, I've got 9 points here that I actually would like to discuss. So, experience. Gain some hand-on experience. Participate in internship, like I said, have a mentorship. Volunteer for security-related projects or participate in cybersecurity competitions. This will help you to gain some experience and build up your resume. And I mentioned LinkedIn before as well. I really think it's a good opportunity to go on LinkedIn, write some articles, do some personal branding. If you're good enough, get it out there and make sure that is updated regularly, because this is where people often look at as well. Certification. Consider of getting a certification. So like I said, you can actually look at product specific. For example, let's look at Microsoft. We've got the security architect. So it's, the gold standard for security, which is the CISSP, or the Certified Information System Security Professional. Also the Certified Information Security Manager, that is from ISSAP. And then also one thing I'd really like to stress on as well, things like AI 900, which is Microsoft specific, which is the artificial intelligence fundamental. So this is the future actually. So this is one thing you need to consider, is actually focus on AI. Networking, build your network relationship, for example, within other professionals, and make sure you don't step over the boundary of doing a bad thing like hacking, or, you have to perform something good, because you don't want ever this to count against you when you actually want to look for a job later. LinkedIn, as I said, it's a professional networking social program platform. Mentorship is quite good. This is the one thing that I actually do as well. I select a few people and we'll go through the process. For example, here, Tasman as well, going through the questions that she's posing here as well. She had an opportunity to give me 10 questions so we can actually go through and discuss that as well. And then what we'll do is, when I actually look at mentoring somebody, it's not just important to look at what knowledge that you've got. You have to be able to apply that knowledge. And when you look at this, it has to be in a large organization at the end of the day. We need to look at enterprises and so on, because it's what we're looking at as well. There is a continuous education that we actually have to look at. Even if you have done your certification, like me, I've done a few. You always make sure that you improve your knowledge, because that somebody cannot take that away from you. You can go through training, attending conferences, and luckily these days remotely, we can attend these conferences virtually and make sure that you improve your knowledge and just keep up to date to these. And then also industry publications. There are many groups. There are groups that you can belong to. You can look at Twitter or X, and even like in Facebook and so on. I tend to keep those kind of things away from my professional work environment and log in from a separate personal system. But you can get a lot of information. Also need to consider there's a lot of noise out there that you have to focus and filter through. Be persistent. Break into the field. Challenging, but be persistent and don't stop. You must be willing to learn and help you succeed. So the continuous process that you have to do. I actually, looking at my son, for example, he's a Cisco engineer, but he actually did his CCNA initially, and then he actually fell off the track, went totally different, and then he realized later, there's something I really love, the networking and the security around that. And took him 2 years to get back into the field, but now a little bit quite more persistent and actually making a difference at least. And then also stay current. You have to stay current with the latest trend technologies. And this is where you get information from your different groups as well. LinkedIn has also got a lot of information and companies you can follow and trends and analysis. There's a couple of things that you need to also remember. You can actually use tools, learn the tools, learn to see how you can do vulnerability scannings, vulnerability analysis and things like that. But it's all saying a fool with a tool is still a fool, which means basically you have to have hands-on knowledge and understand the technology and not just actually using a checklist and so on. You have to be very flexible and adaptable, because the cybersecurity field is really changing. We've moved from on-premises to hybrid to cloud. Now, cloud, there's of course, some advantages and some disadvantages in a sense. And then also now with artificial intelligence and machine learning, these things are evolving so quickly. So you have to keep up to date, and you have to be adaptable to succeed. If there's a community, get involved. There's user groups that get together. I actually belong to a group that every Wednesday, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we tend to get together and have a discussion. So it's about 20 people within a Zoom call that we actually discuss all these items and what's new and so on. So try join that, or create even the group and actually show some leadership there as well.
What are the most important traits and or skills a cybersecurity professional should have, in your opinion?
Now, also, if I have to think about some important traits, what should have, in my opinion, technical expertise. You need to understand computer systems. You have to go in from a technical point of view. If you look at certain training material, for example, networking has got the OSI layer. This is the open system interconnect layer. There's 7 layers. Now, you don't have to know it in detail, but you need to understand that these are different things and how it works. So there's networking issues, encryption. You need to understand that as well. People tend to say the encryption, if you look at certification like CISSP, that's a really difficult part. It's actually, encryption is actually the easiest part, because it's actually parrot work. You actually either know it or you don't know it. You know the actual technical details, and you know the implementation is basically, these are the international best practice standards that really work. And then also you can also see that the threat and understand the threat, for example, to break encryption is usually not the encryption system itself, but people. So you understand the technical expertise of that, attention to detail. You have to, especially writing reports and so on, you have to pay attention and close details of what could compromise security. You need to understand the different layers of the onion layers, or different threats that can be on that defense in depth. It's another word you can actually use. So it's those layers of protection from the physical right up to the logical and the network layers and so on. So attention to detail is very important. You have to have problem-solving skills. You have to sit back and look at, have to identify, analyze, and resolve some complex security problems. It could be one of the backgrounds I did as well, quite often do forensic investigations as well, where you actually, your forensic, so if you don't have proper problem-solving skills, if you make a mistake and identify something wrong and you get it wrong, that you say a person is guilty and he's not guilty, you impact his career and his life and possibly his marriage as well. We've seen that in some of our investigations and so on. This is important, is your ability to analyze complex scenarios. Communication skills, very good. I think this is a soft skill that you actually have to do. You have to say the right things at the right time, and also the audiences that you do speak to is different. You might sometimes speak to a technical audience, and you have to have that technical skills. That kind of communication you cannot use at a senior management level or at a board level. You cannot make it too technical, because if you make it too technical, they'll lose interest and actually try to cut you short. So you need to know what to say at what time and so on. And from a communication skill, I really recommend do some communication skill training. How do you present? Presentation skills, incredibly important. So understand that. Do that properly and see how you can. Okay, if I do a lot of training as well, training is entertainment. You need to keep the audience awake. Call it that. You have to be a team player. We have to work together in the security field. We often work in teams and cross-pollination in teams as well, where we sometimes have business skills and sometimes technical skills, and sometimes you have very sensitive information and people that don't understand. So be a team player, make sure you have that skills, and how the word collaboration comes together. How do you collaborate as a team? So you in your own team or actually other teams as well. Adaptability. So like I said, the cybersecurity landscape is constantly changing, and then the professionals in the fields must be adaptable and quickly respond to new threats. I listen to podcasts, for example, information that I get from some threat analysis systems. I get information from that point of view. Continuous learning. This is also important to stay current with the latest technologies. As I see, for example, now we're actually looking at artificial intelligence. Very important. So what do we have to think about artificial intelligence or AI now? We need to look at the threat landscape, the threat modeling. What could go wrong? Is it security about AI, or does AI help me with my security? What can go wrong with the large language models? What can, people feed it, for example, and make the system hallucinate or say incorrect things? And then also, finally, here, strong ethics. You have to maintain the highest ethical standard. Cannot stress it enough. You must not do something that is against the law. For example, if you have a criminal record against you, you cannot have a CISSP, for example, because there are criteria. It all depends on the actual record as well, because we had one sort of like an exception because it was purely a political record and not actually a criminal law. Then also, and there is one that we actually can actually do good judgment. So cybersecurity professionals must be able to make sound decisions under pressure, balancing the need for security within the organization needs. You always have to ask yourself, when people actually look at, want to fish you and actually catch you out, there's a lot of pressure. But you have to practice and do a decision tree and practice these things before the time. I would sometimes sit, if you've got a team and you do cybersecurity, sit with your team and do some role play and actually go through it. So like, for example, if you have a disaster happening, you call it disaster, you have a tabletop exercise. Do this for cybersecurity as well to get your information.
What do you consider the biggest threat to an organization's cybersecurity, and how can it be mitigated?
Now, also, the threats that we actually see from is really dependent on the size of the organization, the industry. Also, it could be geolocation as well. Security needs of the organization. Is there personal information that can be identified? For example, a phishing attack. This is a big one as well. The phishing attacks uses, of course, emails and fake websites to somebody to click, and that click will introduce a threat within the organization and either break into your system or get the information not to break into your system, but log into your system. The saying currently is hackers don't break into your system, they actually log onto your system. Now, this is a threat that we actually have. We have got ransomware, where an attacker or a hacker would actually encrypt your data and ask for ransomware. And once you pay that ransomware, you'll say, for example, if we've seen the next phase, you pay the ransomware and it says, okay, well, your data's back, but we still got your data. You don't pay us more, otherwise we release it into the public. There's insider threats. It's bigger than from the outside. So insider, a lot of the investigations I did is fraud investigations. So I believe there's three types of people in your organization. There's the person that will look for fraud and commit it. The person that won't look for it, but will commit it when it actually comes his way and it looks easy. And then finally, the person who will want his family to survive, and you make your choice who you are. Advanced persistent threats, those are threat actors, international syndicates, could be state actors, state threats that people want to break into your environment. You'll see, and they usually have different names, for example, Russian bear, or you'll see they also would be called APT and a number, for example, to identify who the threat actor is. And then finally, there is also cloud security. That's a big issue. Now, cloud security, what that gives us is a central point of control, which makes it better for us. However, again, it is all to do with configuration of the cloud security. Sometimes you look outside and you hear that a lot of data has been compromised because somebody actually left their database open or their bucket open within a cloud environment with a default password or no password at all. And this MongoDB or MariaDB or whatever database it is, the backend, or even flat files, that is a big risk at the moment. So focus on those things when you actually look at your career.
How do you stay up to date with cybersecurity trends and advancements?
Now, to stay updated in the trends and advancement, one thing we can actually do is to follow industry publications and websites. There's dark reading material, SE Magazine, Wired's threat level blogs that you can actually go through. Subscribe to those things and you get your mail quite often. And I do subscribe to those, but I actually use it, again, separately from my work email, because otherwise you can get spammed quite a bit. There's cybersecurity conferences that you can attend and keep up to date. There's like RSA conference, the Black Hat, USA, DEFCON, for example. These are excellent opportunities, and sometimes these you can actually see quickly. You'll see some of the vendors doing that as well. You can also, the online forums and communities, this is very important as well. Specifically what we do here is have certain forums internally from the mentor and mentee process that we do. For example, specifically, like I said, banking and insurance, FSI industry is my forte, and I like to look at that and share that information internally from the people who focus on that. Vendor security blogs, for example, Cisco's got Talos, you've got Microsoft information that comes out as well. And many of these vendors offer regular newsletters that you can get your information from. And then also follow thought leaders. Go to LinkedIn, see who's actually the leader in the environment, and follow them on social media, follow them on places where they share information, like Twitter, like LinkedIn. Mostly the better places to have, from the other social media and so on. I don't believe in TikTok at all. I don't have an account. Facebook is more, there is information, there's security groups that I belong to and administrate, which is quite good as well. And then also, of course, YouTube can provide value insights of latest development in security. Now, participate in training and certification programs. So you've got this continuous program education, or CPE points. Once you get a certification, you have to keep that up to date. Otherwise, you can lose that certification. Now, this is actually allow you to stay up to date. Then also, one thing I'd like to do as well, this is not a question, but I'd like to look at the challenges by obtaining cybersecurity skills. Now, there is a shortage of skilled professionals as well, but to be a skilled professional, you have to have good intelligence, good experience, and have to make sure that apply. What I would suggest as well, certain things to focus on: presentation skills, so that communication skills, that's important. Try do that, try present to other people, get that butterflies out your tummy, or if you have butterflies, use those to actually have that presentation skills. And then also, like I said, so those soft skills are very important. Report writing as well. Make sure you can actually do report writing. We'll use AI in the future, like ChatGPT, to get information as well. I do use it, but you always verify. I think that ChatGPT is actually becoming the cheapest assistant I can actually have. There's a rapid pace of change, so this is a challenge. You have to keep up to date, and sometimes it's important. Within the AI field, I was fortunate enough to be in an AI team lead program within an organization to actually look at what we can do on that. So this was actually quite good. So this is the opportunities that you actually need to do. There is a lack of standardization that we need to see as well. There are things like within Europe, we've got NIS2, for example, which is the Network Information Security Directive version 2, which is due on the 17th of October 2024. So it's in the future at the moment, but it's mostly in the past. And companies have to be compliant to that. Another one I'm looking at as well is DORA, or the Digital Operational Resilience Act, which is also in Europe, which is focusing on FSIs, or banks at the moment. So this is where you can actually focus on. Look at other standards as well. One of the other ones I can actually recommend as well. Look at, for example, the NIST. NIST.org is the website. There is a cybersecurity framework. There's a version 2 that was released on the 27th of February 2024. Also look at that, to actually look at and understand those kind of frameworks, which actually really helps you in your job. It's lack of diversity. Now, diversity in the sense of, my mentor program as well, sometimes I actually want to focus and actually, my mentor program, what I'd like to do is actually focus on the women in the field as well. Like I said, whoever is in the mentee program, which I'm mentoring, it doesn't matter. But, I'd like to focus on making sure that we actually do get a nice diversity of gender, ethnicity, and some background. This is the problem where it limits the pool of talent availability for organization in a recruit form, because we see a lot of organization would like to employ in the diversity field as well. So we're trying to do that. Then also the gaps in soft skills, I did mention that. Strong communication and collaboration skills are very important. Be a team player. Know how to write reports, how to actually explain the problem. You have to explain the problem properly to either a technical or C-level or board level. What I do as well, there are many tools that you can actually look at. Like I said, some people don't like the idea of AI-generated stuff, but like I said, it is a guide and a start, but it has to be your interpretation as well, making sure everything is fine. And then also I will use a product like Microsoft Word has got the grammar checker inside. If you actually don't want to use that, there's Grammarly, for example, and there's also Quillbot, which actually is AI, rewrite your stuff based on the audience. And, you won't do that always, because it just makes you understand and learn from that. And that's basically it. Thank you. Oh, okay. Skills mismatch. Yes, absolutely. Let's actually talk about maybe another one or two items. Let's skills mismatch. So many organizations seek professionals with specific skills and experience. You'll see that the job offer or the job description that they actually put out there say, we're looking for a CISSP, we're looking for a CISO or we're looking for a guy with mainframe experience, with 10 years experience, and so on. There's often a mismatch and things like that. Now, what I believe as well, if you look at, there's auditors or there's security people. Now, which one is better? Become an auditor and add security skills to him, or take a security guy and add some audit skills to him, and things like that. This can be a mismatch. So you need to actually look at what you need to, and I suggest go to where they offer, in LinkedIn and so on, all these job offers and things like that, and see what they want. Look at this as well. As part of the mentor program and so on, we'll go into detail on these kind of different things and how you can actually do that. Then also there's also high demand and salaries. For if you're in a good environment, there's cybersecurity professionals and high salaries. It can make it difficult for organizations to attract and retain top talent. You'll get a guy who actually, he was entry level and he becomes really an expert, and other companies will grab him. And when I was in the bank as well, it was a difficult thing whereby we lost a lot of headcount because sometimes the salary we couldn't match from certain companies. So this is a huge thing for us at the end of the day. And that's basically it. There's I would suggest, join, send a mail, connect, follow the channel or follow where you found us and so on, and reach out and so on and get information, and we'll try to help improve your knowledge. Thank you.